45.
Everything.
Meeting to order. Town of Aurora acknowledges the lands on which we live and work are traditional and treaty territory of Chippewas and Machine Island, as well as many other nations whose presence here stay. As the closest First Nation community to Aurora, we recognize the special relationship the Chippewas have on the lands and waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and these municipalities are joined in these responsibilities. Further acknowledge that Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas and Chippewas recognized from Treaty 15, as well as the Williams Treaty of 1923. Shared understanding of the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries. Our collective past brought us to where we are today. All this walk together into a better future. Motion to approve. There is any declarations of interest. Motion to receive information, the committee meeting minutes, October 11. Wrong. Favor. Two items. First one's on one, memorandum for financial management provided your budget review. Services. Start.
Okay.
This is your department.
It's been a while since obviously we've been here, obviously since last.
We're here for support though.
Oh, thank you. Much appreciated. I see Tracy and Jason there for support too.
Yes.
Since the last time we were before council and in FAC in particular, to me, I understand this is a review of our operating budget. And to answer any questions related to predominantly any anomalies. And I think finance has tried to help us with highlighting what some of those might look like. And then subsequently, the team and CMS has provided a briefing note or explanation in the far right column. So I'm assuming this document was shared. Okay, perfect. So I'm just getting a note from Lisa. So Lisa Worth, our manager of recreation, will not be here today. She's not well, and she's confirmed that she's just not up to joining us today. So I will do my best to answer her division if there's questions within recreation. But otherwise, at this point, we continue to evolve. Recreation is and community services is known in general for, program delivery. But all of our divisions, we're quite vast. So we've got a lot of expense, but we also have a lot of, fortunately, some revenues that help offset our budgets. Very proud with our department over the last few cycles of budgets. Since I've been here anyway, I feel very confident with the delivery of our budgets. The team is very diligent about their management of their budgets. And certainly they bring anything to my attention that seems to be going sideways. But generally speaking, I'm very pleased with how close and they're capable of predicting their budgets from year to year. That is not an easy task, especially with something so fluid as likes and dislikes within a community. It's not as simple as this is your house, you get paid, you're going to pay this amount. It's, do I want to take a camp? Do I want to take a program? So there's various things as well as the expense side. We all know through COVID impacts of costs of operations, contracts, just material costs, labor shortages, that kind of thing has impacted some of the costs we'll see in our budget. And then obviously just general repair and maintenance of our facilities. We've got aging facilities and that comes as well, an aspect that we try to manage. Now that's capital, but there's also day-to-day maintenance that's handled through our regular operating budgets. So all that being said, I'm not sure how you want to tackle this. If we just go to questions or if you want to hone in on the yellow, whatever you council wishes to proceed with.
See if they have any questions. Eric?
Of course, I would use certainly through you, Mayor. I really like the highlights that you did. It was helpful for me in particular, not knowing what the history of all of these things are. So I want to thank you for that. I do have a couple of questions on, and I agree with you that it's difficult to manage the forecast of 24 compared to what the actual one 23 was, because a lot of things changed, the population, et cetera. The one thing that struck me that wasn't on here in the yellow lines was the information around grants and sponsorships, which is what we use to gather additional money, and there were some significant differences between what was forecast and what was achieved. And so I know that it likely is because the availability of grants, it could be how we're approaching the grants. I just like to know what the future is for grants, because I think we need to do probably a little bit more, a better job on revenue on the grants. So what's the plans on, am I reading that incorrectly, or is that?
No, no, couple of lines in particular were highlighted under Lisa's division, for special events in particular, focused around where we had in the past received grants. And the grant pool is evolving as well, there's a lot of, there always is, but there's always a lot of competition for grants. And albeit there's new ones that come out, and Shelley and the team and Laura Sheardown and finance are excellent at trying to ask for everything whenever it's possible and suitable. But from time to time, year to year, there's just not as much money to be spread around, and we therefore get cut like everybody else. We get reduced, but anywhere there's new opportunities, we're always pursuing it.
And particularly in the community programs. So during 2021 and 2022, during the height of the COVID period, the town did really well, particularly on the Canada Summer Jobs grants. Because we were the ones that actually had positions available, and there wasn't as many applicants at that time. But now we're returning more to a normal state and getting back to more of our prior success rate than what we were at during that time.
And so there's, in the next year, when you're looking at your budget for next year, are you going to be putting any extra emphasis on that? More time, part-time people, somebody who's going to be taking charge of that a bit more? Or is it just,
So
I believe it's just it's a timing thing?
So one of the things we do have included in the 25 budget was proposed in last year's as well, is a position in finance that's specifically dedicated to focusing on grants. So there are a lot of grants out there, but we only have so much capacity to apply for them. So we're hoping with this that we can actually get more success. Maybe not necessarily in all of the areas, but whatever we can go for, we'll seek out.
And there was some change in the community grants too that I saw. Can't find them exactly right now, but was there a change in the total amount of community grants that are available from 23 to 24, and now I'm looking at 25? Are they staying?
Are you talking the value or the
Total amount? Yeah.
total amount?
Did we consolidate that?
I think there was a consolidation.
Yeah.
Showing here, so it's being moved from one place to another.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I can just add a little bit. Those, a big portion of those grants used to sit in communications because they were part of a sponsorship fund. And then we decided to move it to and consolidate everything because it was getting murky as to when was it a sponsorship and when was it a community grant. So we came to council and council passed a new policy on that, and we combined those funds after that decision was made.
Right.
Thanks. Most of my questions revolve around revenue. And so just, I guess in general, when you're putting together the budget and start looking at the year in advance, when were we anticipating for the town square to be open? Because the first one I want to just ask about is page 4 is cultural services. Because revenue is way down. Answer. So can I assume that when we start putting the budget together and start doing forecasting for things like rentals and cultural services department, we're doing it in sort of July, August of the preceding year? Or
Bill might know more specifically. I do believe when we prepared the budget in 24, we had anticipated occupancy in March.
Yeah.
Therefore, we were planning to be open with rental potential as of June, July. So the budget was prepared with that in mind. So we're obviously not going to capture that in 24.
Yeah, because if you go to page 4 where revenues are listed for cultural services, you know, we had identified in the budget $500,000 plus in revenue, and now we're only forecasting 260, which, you know, for the most part, seems to be primarily driven by lack of rentals, which would make sense since town square is not open.
Correct. Yes.
But just, you know, I think that, you know, one of the hard things looking at revenues, because I mean, you know, obviously we want to try and drive as much revenue as possible because it's, there's burden on the tax levy. But, you know, when you look at previous years, you know, because of COVID and the impact it had on this department, it's always hard to compare past years, current years, to really understand how we're doing. So I guess in general, are the revenues back in line with pre-COVID days? Or are we still
Do you want to go first?
trying to, you know, get back to 100%?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly typically on the rental side, I would say we're back at pre-COVID figures for revenue. Similar with sponsorship, although that really didn't change. We suspended contracts because our sponsors couldn't get recognition during COVID, but we're certainly back to our pre-COVID levels there. And I would say on recreation programming as well, I think
Yeah.
we're back to pre-COVID levels, if not improve more. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's good, because it does look in some departments, it is, some departments, there's a variance. So let me just pull up the other ones, just to help understand. So, for example, community programs, page 11, for those that are following. So our 2023 actual revenues were 3.5 million. Now we're forecasting 2.8 million, which is a decline of $673,000 based on the sheet here. But I'm also just thinking back to myself, well, what was it like pre-COVID in terms of the actual numbers as well? Because in this case, it doesn't seem like we've gotten back to where we were last year, or perhaps even previously.
Sorry, I'm now on that page with you. I'd have to get Lisa to verify, but I believe there's a fluctuation between where the money is coming, but I agree with you. There's a difference there, but 600, almost 675. All of what she's suggesting is that the year end is likely to finish in line with 23. So,
In the forecast could be in line.
in the forecast, it's suggesting we'll be in line by the year end. And there are a couple of those yellow lines at the top, says 24 year end is likely to finish in line with 23. But I agree, certain areas will be lower. I think we've seen a real flip in day-to-day drop-in where people are choosing to go more of a membership base, whether aquatics, for example. And with regards to program, we're seeing maybe a decline in preschool, but we're seeing an increase in child. So there's a bit of a wave happening that we're riding, but I think in general, Lisa would communicate in her minds, we're in line with where we've been previously, if not before, pre-COVID.
And
Thank you. Then just following those same lines on page 16, we're talking about facilities. You know, we're up year over year from 2023 to 2024, but our forecast is going to be less than budgeted, but just slightly, about $100,000 less. But here's another one where I'm kind of waffling, where I'm like, well, where are we compared to pre-COVID levels? Are we back to the amount of revenue we generated in 2019, or are we still on the rise? So, you know, perhaps, you know, future, you can kind of show us where we were at our peak in terms of revenues generated and whether or not we're 100% back or 95% back or 110%, whatever. Right, because I mean, the expenses, and you've done a great job of highlighting the expenses where there are variances, and that's a little bit easier to grasp and understand for me and probably, you know, for other members of the committee and council. But revenue is always a hard one unless I look back over past budgets to kind of say, well, how are we doing? Because, you know, you would hope that people have come back and are utilizing the facilities to their utmost, just like in the past, but maybe not.
I just would add, just in speaking with Lisa, I'm going back to programs, but I know for her on an annual basis, it seems to be, and finance could verify, but her revenue lines have continued to go up. But to your point, are they truly in line or higher than pre-COVID? I'd have to verify, but there is a sense that we are definitely in line, if not above. When it comes to this page, I'm looking at the 16, this includes leases. And I know we've had some fluctuations with leases, in particular with the Yonge Street properties. We've now, over this year in particular, we've got some vacancies that obviously have caused a change in our revenue projections. But other than that, it's pretty static regarding the leases. And I guess in rentals, I don't know if there's anything distinct you point out regarding ICE or
Yeah.
facility rentals that would be waiving.
Nothing significant.
Like lease use.
Yeah, we, year to year, we always have some fluctuations. One club where, you know, maybe like a recreational club folds, but then somebody else picks up their time. But so there's little ebbs and flows, but overall, I'm quite confident that we're back at our pre-COVID levels. But what you'll see year over year, we always saw fluctuations. Maybe one year we did a little bit better with fields. And in the next year they dropped a bit. Same with ice. We might go up a couple of percentage points or down a couple of percentage points with ice. It all fluctuates a bit, but overall, I'd say we're back at pre-COVID levels, not significantly higher because pre-COVID, as is now, we've pretty much maxed out the availability of our facilities, so there isn't a lot of room for growth. It's just a matter of those minor fluctuations here and there.
And we are working on a forecast update right now, so that'll be coming to council in the next couple of months. So I'll provide some more updated information. This is a little bit older at this
Yeah.
point in time.
Yeah.
The other one that I had signaled here, and it's just is my misunderstanding, not understanding of how consultants are used, but is there a place where all of our consultant costs are captured townwide? Just from a number to see whether we're moving up or we're moving down. I know we can do it individually by department, but is there some place where we take a look at our total consultant costs?
We can take a look corporate wide to see how much has been charged under consultants. That could also include some of the capital works as well as operating as well. That's assuming that everyone is charging it properly to the consultant's line and not to other areas.
Yeah, sure. I'm not understanding the value of them, but I was looking, and that may help because when I was looking at the special events one, there's a significant amount of consultants. So in that consultants costs, are those some of the event specialists, the people that we pay for doing the things that bring people up to events? I'm not sure where the consultant line is.
Just verifying, are you on page 13?
I lost it, you know, so, hang on.
I don't know.
It's not paginated, so it's under special event.
Are you
events.
talking contracts? Because I don't see the consultants.
Yeah, that would be contracts.
Contracts.
Well.
Page 12.
Well,
Service
called
and
contracts.
Service and consultants.
Oh,
Yeah. The big number, I just want to know what.
I'd have to
what
verify
it's
that.
used for.
I'd have to verify that with Shelley exactly, how that is utilized.
And the reason it stuck out is just because it's a significant change from was it 23 or the actual 23 and 24 is more service. So
I would think so too, based on.
Performers and
I
stuff.
can't see her using consultants per se.
I think that might be performers and things like that.
It could, it
Because it's the
could be
title
like,
of the
it could be
line.
like Mark that does all the speaker work or whatever.
Right. And it could include bands as
Yeah.
well.
It's services.
And the- yeah.
just a hefty number and it
It
just
should
changed.
probably throw numbers. Maybe we should look at, if that's the case, maybe we should look at using a different.
Terminology.
Yeah.
Yes,
For that.
it's coded.
That's up to me.
Well, actually, sorry, just one more, sorry.
Thanks.
Through you to Robin, just courses and seminars.
Mhm.
Historically, or at least based on the sheet, and so just to follow, we're on page 9. So, you know, typically the department spent, you know, 3,000, 4,000, 7,000. And now it's 40,000, and I see the note saying that the budget allows for 2,000 per full-time staff person, but I guess, is there a specific course or is there a specific item that's driving the increase from just 2 or 3 people training to now like 20 people training?
This may go this way to the CAO if there's a difference through HR, but as I understand it from the training and courses line and disbursements, we do have this is recreation, community services, significant number of full-time staff that are in this team. In the past, it might be $200, $300 per staff member. Wouldn't cover much for them. Where for them to gain benefits of attending courses is typically conferences. Pro, Parks Recreation Ontario offers an annual conference, so it might be aquatics pro, or it might be just general pro. That turns into a bit of a weekend. That's the best way that they can network and learn from each other by attending something like that. We have monitored this and managed the use of it. In the past, it was often underutilized because it was so low, there was no point. There wasn't enough to warrant it. There was a rejigging of the use of training dollars in this past year, and I know that Lisa took advantage of that opportunity within our budget because she knew that her team was lacking in the experiences to keep them up to trends with the world of recreation.
So it's really just a shift in the
It-
policy, allowing them to utilize more dollars?
Yes. That I understand it. We took that from feedback within the budget of courses and trainings.
Someone on recreation. Thank you. All in favor? All that carries. Thank you.
Okay. Fine. Easy button. Thank you very much. Thank you to my team for doing such a great job.
That was the last. Come on, yeah, lunch. Down tomorrow. Shane didn't know about that. He says, "What's the staff meeting?"
So this memo provides an update on the performance that we've been receiving with our funds that are invested with the One Joint Investment Board. So we've been doing fairly well with the funds that we have in there. There are some changes coming to prudent investors, a lot more municipalities that have joined prudent investor. I believe even this week, this list is already out of date. Clarington has now joined as well. So, and I believe South Frontenac as well. So there's a couple more that have just been added. And there's some more that are looking to join by the end of the year. The biggest change was the regional municipality of Durham joined the JIB as well. And they brought in significant value of, I think, over $1 billion in funds that are being invested through the board. So that's given the JIB the opportunity to expand and look at things a little bit differently. And they are moving to an outsourced chief investment officer model, and there'll be more information that's coming on that. And what it's going to do is it's going to create a wider variety of funds that are available to invest in. And some other different investment types of opportunities will be coming, and we'll have more information for you guys in early next year to let you know what the options will be with that as well. So there's a lot of exciting things happening with what's going on with the JIB, and it is definitely expanding.
Question.
Looking at the returns. The portfolio that we have right now, is that your choice? Or is that you work with the manager? Or it's a combination of both looking at risk and our financial objectives? How does that come about?
So right now, when we're working with the Joint Investment Board, we work with a person that works for them. And what we do is we identify more like the length of term that we're planning on having the funds invested. They also take our investment policy and the information that's in that, and they have the discretion of how to invest the funds based on our objectives that are outlined in our investment policy, and then also the time requirement that they would have the funds available to them. Generally, if we have funds that we need within, say, the next 5 years, they're going to put the funds in something a bit more conservative than something we may not need the funds for 15 years. Because there's a longer term to earn higher returns on those funds.
No, certainly, I mean, returns are great. And I was trying to look back, but I couldn't really find it. But when we developed our policy and we made the move forward, did we not forecast what we thought would be, on average, our annual returns? And to me, it seems like this is exceeding our expectations at this point in time. Is that accurate?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So currently, yes, it is exceeding the expectations. But if we look at like the history, like there were some losses back in 2022, which we didn't experience because we didn't get in until 23, but they got made up in that period of time. Still over, 5-year period, they're still making better than what we would have earned on a legal list investment.
So, what do we do with this information? do we continue just to move forward with our investment strategy and policy as outlined previously, or do we, have some consideration to looking at other ways to maximize the return, or what are we doing with the results of this other than just saying, okay, this is great, and do we just continue to monitor and see what it is 2, 3, 4 years down? It's kind of like, it's
Yeah.
data. What do you do with the data?
So part of what we're able to use this for is particularly for some of the longer term reserves that we have, where we're looking at significant infrastructure investments later in 10, 20 years from now. We can actually use this information to be able to build up those reserves. And then it helps us determine how much we would need to include either in the user rate or in the tax levy, and hopefully mitigate the impact on the overall payer so that we're able to use the investment returns to offset some of those future increases.
So I did see your email today as well with regards to the historic returns, because we did have a brief conversation at committee of the whole where there was around, is it best to use the hydro funds, or is it best to use the venture to that $7.5 million? So, when you see returns like this, it's a good question to ask, and I'm sure that council appreciates the follow-up.
Thanks. Motion. Go on, Mike. All those in favor? Opposed? If there's any new business? Motion adjourned. Ron, all those in favor? Opposed?